on, go. You see up there? Shut your mouth off, you. Come on, every week, you. Come on, there. You're a nice guy.
It's obviously kicked off up there. There's absolutely no doubt about that. I would suggest you hold on to your hats, everyone.
Another tunnel fracas after Pizzagate.
Yes, 15 years to the day this weekend since Arsenal versus Manchester United in the Battle of Highbury, February 1st, 2005. More importantly, the battle of Roy Keane and Patrick Vieira in that Highbury tunnel. This is the Classic Games Club on Off the Ball. You're very welcome along. You can watch the previous episode back on youtube.com/Off the Ball, and you can get in touch with us using Twitter @Off the Ball for any future suggestions. Delighted this week to review Arsenal against United in 05, to be joined by Colm Boohig. You're very welcome.
Hi, Eoin.
And Tommy Rooney, how are you?
Hi, chaps. How are we?
Two childhood Manchester United fans, two suffering Manchester United fans now. But at that moment in time, you must have just been glorifying in front of the amazingness that was happening in front of you.
Do you remember where you were watching it?
I do remember where I was. I was in my best friend's uncle's house because none of us had Sky Sports, and he was at work, and we used to go there to watch the games. He was a Leeds United fan, and we watched it. We watched it there. I remember it. I remember it more clearly because I remember that I used to listen to games at that stage on my radio, and I remember Pedro Menez's ghost goal. It's one of the most vivid memories I have of football as a kid. Is listening to that in my room, up really low because I wasn't allowed to be listening to the game. And that was a month before that. So it was a peak time in my kind of forming of as a
football prohibition in the Tommy Rooney household.
Absolutely.
Graceful.
I have more stories about that, but we won't get into it now.
Yeah, I'm sure we do. What do we have, Colm? Where were you when you were watching this?
I was in my living room. We had just got Sky Sports.
Okay.
And it had to be taken away from me because it was distracting me from actual school. No, it was short term. It was like 6 months loan deal contract that was not taken up in a permanent option.
We had a 6 month Sky Sports thing when I was in about 2010, so it was just Gabby Bonlahora on the TV every week. I wish we had Sky Sports for this period.
Were Villa really hot back then?
Television around 2010.
Back then on Sky, you used to get everything, right? Now it's all splinters.
So that's exactly it. So
yeah.
Got value for your money. But.
So I remember watching it with my father, who hates United, and that season was so different. As a United fan up to that point, we were used to either challenging as one of the two or being the dominant team. But then that season was the emergence of Jose Mourinho and Chelsea. So there was a bit of anger and frustration as a United fan, obviously nowhere near what it's like nowadays. But going into that match, it was so huge because the rivalry with Arsenal and between Ferguson and Wenger, and considering Pizzagate and the match before that with Van Nistelrooy hitting the bar and Martin Keown and Lauren jumping on him, there was such
ending the Invincibles as well.
The 49 game unbeaten run for Arsenal. So there was so much anger going into this game, and also anger because we hated Arsenal and Arsenal hated United.
Yes,
but also the biggest frustration was that Chelsea were runaway leaders. They were 10 points clear at that stage.
Yeah.
They played Blackburn Rovers the following night. So they're 10 points clear of Arsenal and 11 points clear of United. So we were frustrated, couldn't understand how this guy could come in and just take this team that were always also rans onto the next level. So there was that frustration, and then going into action.
Roman Abramovich, the amount of money they had spent that season. Yeah. But it was off the back of Arsenal's invincible season, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. So then, but this wasn't the game that obviously ended. That was the previous game of the season. That was to stop Arsenal going 50 games unbeaten, 2-0 exactly. Van Nistelrooy and Rooney scoring on that occasion, and so much passion in their celebrations because, as you say, they absolutely hated Arsenal. You summed up the context very well for me there, Colm. That is pretty much it. They were all the topics I wanted to touch on. Just in terms of the other little threads that might come up throughout the show today, I think there was a couple of interesting stories at Arsenal off the pitch. Previous summer, Patrick Vieira heavily linked to Real Madrid. You had Ashley Cole allegedly talking to Chelsea at the time. This was the chiselling away, or the beginning of the chiselling away of this model that Arsene Wenger had built, the futuristic model that he had built because Roman Abramovich, Jose Mourinho were in town. For United then, this was obviously Rooney's first season, Alan Smith's first season, who actually didn't appear on this occasion, and Gabriel Heinze, who I dare say is going to feature quite a bit today. There's only one place to start, though. It is the tunnel incident. This is obviously we've heard from it at the top here, one of the most, I want to say, the most iconic moment of rivalry between two teams in the Premier League. The shouting of Roy Keane, we'll see you out there at Patrick Vieira. The Guardian, in their live blog, describing the pre-match tension as such. Meanwhile, in the tunnel, Roy Keane and Patrick Vieira have already kicked off over something or other, with the Arsenal skipper being led away from his Manchester United counterpart by Pascal Sigon in front of a very scared-looking young mascot. Keane, I don't think the mascot actually looked that scared. Keane points angrily at Vieira and tells referee Graham Poll that he wants the Frenchman to shut his effing mouth. That is Barry Glendenning, who was doing the live blog that night for The Guardian. You might just have a listen to what Gary Neville said about this, because Gary Neville was central to this whole thing sparking off. Here he is speaking on Soccer AM recently.
It came out of the previous game we played at Old Trafford, where it was suggested we were quite tough with Reyes, where he got subbed after an hour. I think I put a couple in on him, I think Phil did, I think Scholes did. But I got the brunt of it because I was playing against him as a direct opponent. And I just remember hearing these footsteps behind me and Vieira shouting, Neville, Neville, you're not going to kick our players out on this pitch today. Roy obviously turned back, heard him, and started having a go at him, and he sort of squirted his water bottle towards Roy, and then all hell broke loose.
Yeah, so that's him talking about his own role in it. Alex Ferguson afterwards was saying Patrick Vieira was apparently threatening some of the players. He was well wound up for it. Roy Keane said, I don't want to go into too much detail, but Patrick Vieira is 6'4" and he starts having a go at Gary Neville. I said, come and have a go at me. Simple as that. If he wants to intimidate some of my teammates, then let's have a go at some of the other players. I think Gary Neville's an easy target. I wasn't having it. And then Vieira said I didn't threaten anyone. They're big enough players to handle themselves. I had a talk with Roy Keane, and that's it. Gary Neville is a big lad who can handle himself, but the main thing is that they played a bigger game than us. Forget about the game. We're talking about this tunnel incident at the moment. I always thought that this whole Neville thing was completely hammed up and could have been fictitious, and that this was just something that Gary Neville used because he knew the psychology of Roy Keane.
So you're a childhood Arsenal fan?
Yes.
So do you remember that? Do you remember watching the tunnel incident?
I don't remember watching the tunnel incident, no. I remember the game. I don't remember the tunnel incident.
You remember United
I think the tunnel incident became like this massive thing afterwards. Like, obviously before the game, when people were watching it live, it was huge, obviously, if you were watching it, but we weren't living in the era of social media anymore. This was only when you're like watching Premier League years back. You're like, oh my God, I forgot about that tunnel incident. And then it just becomes a social media thing way down the line. So I think it's almost got lost in time a little bit of people who didn't catch it live. But my entire thing was that this was Manchester United making this up. Patrick Vieira did not have a go at Gary Neville. Why would he possibly have a go at Gary Neville? And that Neville just said it to Roy Keane to get his blood curdling.
Well, we didn't have full context when we were watching it live, so it did look like Roy Keane had lost control completely, and Patrick Vieira was the kind of innocent bystander and subsequent victim in this verbal tirade. That's what it looked like. And then subsequently we hear from Gary Neville, who gives full context that...
Wow. Did Gary Neville give full context?
They were having from United's point of view. This is all going to be from United's point of view. I do remember it live, you see. I remember it vividly. And there wasn't a lot of games that Sky showed the tunnel beforehand with players at that time. But that was only something that they did every so often, sporadically. So I suppose they were always going to do it for this game, second against third.
I think they got a tip-off.
The Highbury Tunnel.
But Highbury Tunnel was so intimate. I mean, I loved watching games at Highbury on TV. I absolutely loved it because there was always that screaming woman when the opposition scored. And I don't know who she was and what part of the stadium she was sitting in, but she was obviously close to the mics. And it was always picked up when the opposition scored. And I just loved everything about it. I loved the intensity at Highbury. But that tunnel incident was like nothing I'd ever seen before, and I haven't seen anything like it since. And it was because Roy Keane, like, anger suits him so much. He's so in control when he's saying all of these things to Vieira.
You said he looked like he was losing control. But looking back on it now and hearing what we did...
Bit of hindsight,
no, he didn't. He didn't lose control. He's in complete control there. But one of my favourite things about it all is, although he's standing up for his teammate, he's still emasculating Gary Neville quite a bit. Like, I think he said it previously and he said it since, you know, picking on Gary Neville, pick on someone on your own side. Did he say something similar?
No, he just picking one of us, which is probably even more degrading.
I think that's very offensive to Gary Neville, personally.
Poor little Gary in the corner. Gary's well fit to look after.
Well able to look after himself.
600 Premier League games.
Just at a road show, sure, yeah.
There's a couple of different characters in this tunnel. So you obviously have the two boys. There's only one camera in the tunnel, so we don't actually get to see Patrick Vieira in full flow here. We actually don't. That's one of the things that's been lost in time here, is when Roy Keane is pointing at him, all we're getting is one camera view of Roy Keane. We actually don't know Vieira's body language there, and I'd love to see it. But what we do have is you have Pascal Sigon standing there and just kind of like looking at him, and you're kind of almost confused as to what the hell is going on, like kind of a fairly blasé Frenchman, whereas Patrick Vieira is a more passionate Frenchman. And then you have like Roy Carroll, kind of like looking like one of Draco Malfoy's cronies, just peering over the shoulder looking at the Arsenal lads. But then my favourite character in this entire thing, in this tunnel, is Graham Poll.
Can't beat him.
Because he says nothing more, but he finishes it, he says, nothing more in here. Yeah. And he says again, nothing more in here.
Leave it in here.
He was like, do whatever you want to each other out there when I can referee you, but in here, leave each other alone. And sure enough, when they get out there, they absolutely kill each other. Yeah. But before the game actually commences, we have the handshakes. And who is it? It's Roy Keane who doesn't shake Vieira's hand.
No, he does.
Does he?
Yeah, he does. Roy Keane's fine with it. He's just like, yeah, whatever.
But Gary Neville's
the one then who grips the hand.
Gary Neville gives him a strong handshake.
No, the only handshake I can remember being Mrs. Wayne Bridge and John Terry. I can never remember anyone else not shaking someone's hand. I'm open to correction.
Right, okay, we've been told by each other. I've got it wrong, I'll put my hands up, I got it wrong. It was always... I've even watched it back this week, obviously.
No, right, he wouldn't do that. Because he didn't shake Ronaldo and Diego Simeone's hands. Yeah.
But I'm not blaming Roy Keane for this. I'm saying that there was two in this. Himself and Vieira didn't shake each other's hand. But I'm obviously wrong. I'll hold my hands up. But definitely what did happen is Gary Neville grabs Vieira's hand and looks at him straight down his eyeballs and just to intimidate him. Gary Neville is well able to stand up for himself. This is a ridiculous notion.
So your theory
that Roy Keane had to stand up for him. Gary Neville knew exactly what he was doing. He said that perhaps there was a bit of water squirted at him, or that was like Roy in the tunnel. There's a lot of things here that are undocumented and that are urban.
They said he was manhandled in the tunnel.
No. According to Darren Fletcher's account of things,
again,
right?
a Manchester United account.
Yeah, Darren Fletcher, I trust Darren Fletcher.
He's very
Seems like a trustworthy guy. Yeah, exactly. And he said in the warm-up beforehand that the Arsenal players were having a go around Gary Neville. And it was all around the treatment of Jose Antonio Reyes in the previous match at Old Trafford in the unbeaten game, where Gary Neville repeatedly fouled Reyes. So Vieira and the boys were going up to Gary Neville saying, you won't be doing that tonight, and squirted water at him. And according to Darren Fletcher, Gary Neville came into the dressing room after the warm-up and before the match and did his now very familiar incredulous laugh that he does in Sky, saying, those lads they're gone mad outside, they're lost control completely. And Roy then took it upon himself to be like, I'm going to say something here.
Nobody does that to my players.
And Alex Ferguson didn't know about it.
This Darren Fletcher piece on the Man United website is fantastic. It's
great.
It says if you're going into a fight without a doubt, you want to be on Roy Keane's side, then look at the other lads in the dressing room that night. Waza, Wes, Rio, Ainze, Scholesy. We've got all these lads and more. And Sir Alex Ferguson behind us. So you look around and think to yourself, yeah, we'll be all right. It's just an army of thugs.
There's another moment in that Darren Fletcher piece, and it's to do with the handshake at the start. And it also leads to a moment later in the game when Mikel Sylvester gets sent off, that Roy Keane went up to him the week of the game. And because Arsenal had a lot of French players, he was like, Mikel, I don't want you shaking anyone's hand before the game. You can shake their hands afterwards, but not before the game. So Roy Keane has even get into his own players' heads to get them psychologically, up as well.
The only other thing really that kind of comes from this is Keane and his autobiography, which, like, to illuminate something 9 years later, this is his 2014 autobiography, really says something about, as I really think, the mythology around this moment. I just think we're so unused to not having everything so well documented anymore. To have just one camera and not knowing, we rely so much on word of mouth around this and oral histories and accounts. So Keane's 2014 autobiography, if it had come to a fight, Patrick could probably have killed me. As I walked to the front, I heard something going on at the top of the tunnel. All I could see was a few fingers pointing at Gary. I lost it. 5 seconds earlier, I'd been perfectly calm, in the zone, ready for the match. I thought they might have booted him out on the pitch, but in the tunnel, I just thought, the fuckers. They were trying to bully him. They were a big team, and in the tunnel, they were even bigger. So I said to myself, all right, let's go. We get into the handshakes, and then the match kicks off. Any final thoughts on the tunnel before we actually get into the match that we're watching back this week?
Obviously, Keane, I didn't bloody watch it, but the best of enemies. Do you remember the ITV dog?
Yes.
Keane and Vieira did. Yeah.
Their combined 11 was really interesting.
It was, yeah.
Roy Keane insisted on Paul Parker being at right back.
Oh, yeah. He
insisted it.
They were up at a board doing it, weren't they?
And Paul Ince ahead of Paul Scholes.
Well, in fairness, if you look at the match that we're about to talk about, the right-back position is clearly the weakest position on both sides.
But at my point, he's just having a go at Gary Neville constantly.
Well, obviously, consistently. But like putting Paul Parker ahead of him.
Before we get into the game, so for the two lineups, I know you're probably going to go through them now. That 4-4-2 for Arsenal. Were Arsenal missing anyone that day?
Colo Touré.
Oh, Touré was suspended.
Seagan was in centre back. Yeah. Colo Touré. And what about Flamini in midfield? Like, was Gilberto Silva on the scene yet?
No. Yeah, he would have been. Gilberto Silva signed after the 2002 World Cup.
There was a young midfielder by the name of Cesc Fabregas who was obviously on the
17-year-old, yeah.
I'm not sure. Like Flamini was. This was when he was about to get into his pomp, I would have thought. Flamini. So
he was there, Darren Fletcher.
The question that I had, and I totally forgotten about this, was that like Manuel Almunia had displaced Jens Lehmann for a little while. He was in goals. You had a back four of Lauren, Seagan, Campbell, Cole. Then you had Lundberg, Flamini, Vieira, Pires in midfield, and then Henry and Bergkamp up front. It's an unreal team. But then the United team it's probably my favourite era of Manchester United team. Roy Carroll, Gary Neville, Ferdinand, Silvestre, Ainze, Fletcher, Keane, Giggs, Scholes, Ronaldo, Rooney.
So like they're playing three across midfield there with Fletcher detailed to do a very specific job. Like most teams were playing 4-4-2 back then, even though Arsenal 4-4-2.
Well, again, going back to that Fletcher article, he said that Ferguson very rarely gave players individual instructions to do with the opposition, only in really elite level games. And it started in the FA Cup the previous season, the semi-final 2004, United against Arsenal. And Fletcher was put into the team to specifically help Gary Neville at right back deal with Vieira, who they felt Vieira was...
Deal with Henry and deal with Vieira.
Sorry, the left side, but deal with Vieira primarily and then push over to Henry coming in from the left because they wanted Cristiano Ronaldo to stay forward, stay advanced, and he pretty much replicated that role at Highbury that night as well.
This is an unbelievable game. The tunnel is something that, even though I don't remember seeing the tunnel live, I do remember watching the game live. I think most people are the other way around. The tunnel is the thing, and that the game was secondary, because in the grand scheme of things, it didn't actually matter in the season because Chelsea are runaway leaders. But oh my God, what a game of football. 4-2 to Manchester United, it finished up. This first half, you actually are kind of like checking the clock and you're like, how is this not actually just a highlights package? End to end doesn't do this justice.
The first minute alone just sets the scene where...
3 fouls.
Matthew Flamini plays a lovely ball from centre mid to the right flank to Freddie Ljungberg, who takes a pass, Gabriel Ainse, who more or less elbows Ljungberg in the face.
Yeah, he's...
Like, it's a red card now. It's probably a VAR red card. And the crowd... Like, bear in mind, you're watching this, a recording from 15 years ago on TV, on a laptop, actually, and you can hear the visceral nature of the whole crowd from that first minute of Ainse saying, what did I do, which gets the fans' ire up even more.
The crowd hardly saw what was going on in the tunnel as well. You know, you got to factor that in too. Yeah. They wouldn't have seen what was going on. But not only about that Ainse foul, right? Fletcher fouls Vieira straight away.
Yeah, in the side 20 seconds.
Lets it go. Ball over the top. That Ainse foul. My favourite part of that, and it's something that we've completely lost in football, the referee gets completely surrounded. The United players are irate. Paul pushes the United player back.
Yeah.
Like, it's madness. Inside a minute.
Do you want that back in the game?
I don't know. Like, there's a bit of madness about that.
I think there was splashes done in the newspapers the next couple of days saying about Wayne Rooney and his foul mouth and is he spraying too much.
He's shocking in this match.
It was bad.
He's shocking.
But it's remarkable because he should be sent off at that time.
Like if you're watching this, that picture is quite tame in comparison to what else he's doing. Like, how he didn't get sent off, I don't know, in this match.
What's your moment of the match, Colm?
Overall, for the whole thing. I mean, it's one of my moments of the whole decade is John O'Shea's chip and subsequent reaction when he scores because he doesn't know what to do. I mean, easily moment.
That puts him 4-2 up. Tell me, what are you going for?
I had O'Shea written down, but like, if you think about that game and things just don't happen anymore, that moment with Wayne Rooney, it just doesn't make sense that he wasn't sent off.
The verbal lashing to the linesman.
It was like, he's after coming across and he puts the leg out and completely does. Is it Sol Campbell? He does Sol Campbell. United are 2-1 down.
Zaha, it does Campbell.
Might have been Perez.
It's Perez, but it's in... United are attacking and I think Giggs after making a foul, but Giggs just got booked. They're 1-0 down. Rooney comes in and nails him.
Lorraine.
Paul comes out and he calls him over. He books Rooney. Rooney says what he says, F off, such and such and such. Rooney walks away. Paul calls him back again, goes to send him off. Like, it was just complete madness. It was the street footballer Wayne Rooney. It was before, like the week before that, he's chipping the Middlesbrough keeper and scoring a volley from 40 yards away. Like, I loved that Wayne Rooney. Now, I know my name is Rooney too. Like, I used the Rooney on the back of my thing, but like the passion,
great link.
It's like Graham Paul at the moment of this particular match we're talking in the present tense, is the best referee in the game.
Well, he feels very scorned because he missed out as England representative in Euro 2004.
And then, of course, he gets the call-up for 2006, as has already been announced by this game. The commentators mention it, and we all know what happened in World Cup 2006. It ended his career. He's also, like, I've never seen a referee perspire as much as Graham Poll in this match. Just the end-to-end nature of it. Like, his jersey was a different colour.
There's no way he couldn't have.
I couldn't have kept up with that.
He was more or less playing.
That game doesn't happen without Graham Poll.
No, like as I say, in the tunnel, it's like not anymore in here. Out on the pitch, kick each other, murder each other out there. You know, while everybody can see you. I'm not going to be the only observer of this particular thing. So your moment of the match, you've gone for.
I'm going for that moment with Rooney and Poll, where Poll just kind of calms him down. He gives him a chance. He doesn't send him off. That could have ruined the game. That could have ended the game right there.
We're going to come back to that definitely because it's coming up in a few of the other categories. My moment of the match is Bergkamp's goal. Absolutely unbelievable. The move, the ball in, Pires ducking down, and then Bergkamp's finish. Bergkamp. Like I called Manchester United a moment ago an army of thugs in a very admiring way. Manchester United fans, Arsenal also an army of thugs. This man Dennis Bergkamp what an edge he had to him. He's such an angry man. I didn't realise that Dutch people could be so angry until I watched this match back this week. Absolutely furious human being with every single person who dared touch his body, and then the ball just falls beautifully in front of him, just kind of caresses off the terrible Highbury turf at the time, it seems, and nutmegs Roy Carroll with, I think, a finish that summed Dennis Bergkamp up so well that he could pick a pocket out that was 2 inches wide, but at the same time he's going to lash the ball with an unbelievable level of ferocity.
Did he not just hit it?
Well, no.
He hit it.
That's not a typical Bergkamp goal at all.
That was David Clifford.
It wasn't typical.
I'm saying it sums up his personality so well. As in, you see this tiny little thing, and only one person is able to achieve this.
Like he's seeing what I could never see. Yeah.
And then he just does it in a very angry way.
He was really good that game.
Henry was quiet.
But he set up both goals at the same time. Bergkamp had a first touch at the end of the first half from Manuel Munia's long kick. It was like, oh my God, that's Bergkamp for me, because he was grappling with, I think it was Gabiense or Mikael Silvestre. It was definitely the left side of the United defence.
Out of the sky.
And oh my God, the touch.
I think the commentator that I watched it on referred to the goal against Argentina in the World Cup. It was also similar to his goal against Leicester. The hat-trick that he scored against Leicester.
Filbert Street,
well. He was
35 years old as well.
His first goal against United since the FA Cup semi-final replay.
Yeah, did I say 6 years?
That would have been 5 years at that stage.
5 years,
No, you're right, 6 years. 6 years, you're right.
Yeah, so
Bergkamp was 35 then.
35, then this is the constant thing, the Renaissance. I thought he was wonderful on this particular occasion, and I think he was wonderful because Henry was a little bit more subdued. Coming into the 10-year-old a little bit more. Henry's passing range, everybody knows it. It was just out of this world. In kind of a dream world, you would have had somebody to come in to be a top-class number 9. I know it didn't work out for Reyes at the club, so that Henry could perhaps fill in that role a little bit more as the years went on. And it unfortunately never happened for him, because I think it would have been a great thing to see. Yeah,
he was peripheral, but he was so effective and significant in everything he did in that game, in the little bit that he did. But he was out of the game for large spells of it. You wouldn't see Henry at all.
Yeah, for sure.
But when he got out of body, it was great.
Let's have a look at what Kevin Kilban was saying about this. Kevin Kilban and Dennis Bergkamp. He'd always leave a bit in you. Yeah, he certainly did. Plenty was always left on him, I think it's fair to say. Was there any player in this particular occasion at Highbury who wouldn't leave a bit on you? Everybody was just so angry. Everybody was such a nasty person on the pitch. I've never just seen 22 angry men converge together. Yeah, it was old school, and then it was kind of a little bit of new school in there as well.
Pick some of today's players and put them in there. Would they survive? How would Anthony Martial have got on Highbury?
I don't buy this thing about modern footballers. You play to the rules, or you play to the terms of engagement. Anthony Martial is looked like a bit of a spoiled brat at times. That to me suggests he has the trait of actually being a bit more like Thierry Henry in that match, where he's kind of tapping Ronaldo on the face and all that sort of stuff.
That was great. When Ronaldo squared up to Henry that time, that was great.
Yeah, everybody has elbows. Doesn't matter
I'm referring to David Luiz against Anthony Martial a month ago, and Martial just gives up. He doesn't want to be there. Is it because that Martial doesn't have the characters around him like Roy Keane?
Look, this match was the highest quality Sunday League game ever, basically, because the fighting and the non-stop tackling, the game would have been abandoned in FIFA, but Graham Paul let everything go.
More from Kevin in this article. Bergkamp was 6'2", 6'3". Henry, all these lads were over 6 feet tall. It's a good point, actually. Vieira, 6'4". The eye-catching thing with Bergkamp when I first went up against him was the size of his chest, massive shoulders. He was a specimen, incredible. It was incredible how strong and how imposing he looked, and would leave a bit on you. I think he's bang on there, Kevin Kilbany. You can check the full piece out on offtheball.com. Secret man of the match, the actual man of the match on this particular occasion was one Cristiano Ronaldo. Of course, scored 2 goals in the space of 3.5 minutes, won the game for Manchester United.
He was pretty quiet in that game.
But that was typical Ronaldo at that moment, wasn't it? It was
he wasn't the Ronaldo that he would become. It was interesting watching him back then, because I could remember how frustrating he could be, and but he was up for it that night.
Who's your secret man of the match?
Well, mine is you go first.
Einze.
Yeah, me too.
I go with Einze, but Graham Pole is my man of the match. That game doesn't happen without Graham Pole.
You can play it.
In fairness.
The game doesn't happen
Someone
without
picked Jim
Graham
Gavin
Pole.
for man of the match last week.
Did they? Okay.
Things. It's a disgrace, really.
But honestly, that game does not happen without Graham Pole.
I know he's very good.
He gives out 6 yellow cards. Mikael Silvestre gives him no option but to send him off, because he nuts Freddie Lumberg.
What did he do with the ball at his feet? Who's your player man of the match?
My player man of the match is probably Ainsley as well.
Okay, honourable mention, Silvestre. for secret man of the match? Other than
He got sent off.
Other than him headbutting Freddie Lumber, okay? Headbutting somebody usually is not conducive to being a man of the match. I'll give you that. Prior to that, thought he was excellent.
Ashley Cole.
Also excellent.
Why are you going for Ainsley?
Because he murdered about 4 people. He marauded down the left wing.
His left wing runs.
Sets up John O'Shea's goal pretty much, doesn't he?
Sets up John O'Shea's goal.
Plays a big part
he
in
was
it anyway.
everywhere.
Gets thrown by Fabregas in the 92nd minute.
What a player he was. I don't know what you think of him in United folklore. Like he's gone down in his estimate because he wanted to go to Liverpool. He actively wanted to join Liverpool.
Marcus Rojo be like Gabriel Ainsley? Why couldn't
not as
Marcus
good as
Rojo
him.
be Gabriel Ainsley? Why
Any
not?
player.
No, but like the both Argentinian, why couldn't he have espoused? Why couldn't he have espoused the same characters, the same traits,
Rojo
the same?
in his mind is Gabby Ainsley against Arsenal.
No, Rojo.
His feet aren't.
No, Rojo does bloody Rabonas in the box in his own
I
box.
have no problem with that.
I don't know.
He cleared the ball in that World Cup match. Rabono helped.
Yeah.
He was at the perfect intersection, I thought, Enze, of like full-backs at the time. So you've got Gary Neville going one direction, you've got Roberto Carlos going the other direction. Enze is where the two meet.
He met in
that
axis.
Their love child.
Yeah.
He was great.
He got United Fans Player of the Season that year, Ainsley.
He did, yeah.
That was his first. That was his first season. He scored in his debut away to Bolton. In August, September 2004.
The following January, though, Ever gets signed.
2006, Ever and Vidic,
Together. He gets a bad injury at the start of that season.
Yeah, that's it. Like his first season and a half were great, and then he tailored off completely. He moved to Real Madrid and came from PSG, so obviously huge acumen. But I think United fans don't look back in great affection with it because he angled for a move to Liverpool. Like openly wanted to go to join Liverpool from United.
Yeah, but Rooney wanted to join City.
But United fans went through spells of hating Rooney, so he wanted to join Chelsea twice. So
Enze is our secret man of the match. I think it's fairly unanimous. Graham Paul and Silvestri getting honourable mentions. We're on to our next category this morning, which is most jarring moment. So this is something that you kind of look at and you're like, oh my God, I either didn't realise that, or given the context that we're watching it in the year 2020, how much it does just jar with your mind. I'm going to start this off with Pascal Sigan being decent. I would have him up there as one of the worst Arsenal players previously. And then I watched this and I was like, he was actually okay. Granted, I know they conceded 4 goals, and Kolo Touré would have probably done a better job, kind of a more composed presence. Pascal Sigan, not as bad as I first thought. Also, Ronaldo not standing over frees. It's just weird.
Gabby Ainsley took a crucial free kick 20 yards out, central goal. It was Fred, last night. It was exactly the same.
I remember Ainsley taking a few frees back then. I don't know if he ever scored a free United.
Ainsley?
Yeah.
No.
Don't think so.
But like he had a...
Ronaldo was so flaky back then.
That was at a time when if you had a left foot, like you... top of the queue, like take it.
2005, 15 years ago. Ronaldo was not Ronaldo.
Rooney smashed one off the woodwork. Like
that was between the 2 goals, between Ronaldo's 2 goals. Rooney hitting the.
So why was Rooney allowed to step up and not Ronaldo?
Well, Rooney took on his debut that season against Fenerbahce Champions League, scored a free kick. And as the years went by, and he scored his record-breaking United goal against Stoke with a free kick.
What about the free kick, the 2 free kicks against Arsenal and the 8-2?
8-2. So that free kick was against Arsenal. That 8-2 was the exact same way he took the free kick that night at Highbury, whereas he passed it off, Giggs touched it, and then he curled it around the wall, which is what he did twice against Arsenal in the 8-2 game. And for whatever reason, he only sporadically took free kicks for United, Rooney. But when Ronaldo became Ronaldo, he took over that duty. Like, this was Ronaldo's first major moment for United, and bear in mind he had been at the club since August 2003, so this is over a year and a half into it. This is when he kind of arrived that night, because there was massive doubts about Ronaldo until literally that pass from Ryan Giggs and he took a touch to his right foot and finished it with his left, and then United fans were like, yeah, this is exactly what we're talking about.
I remember
and
that
then
being
he's shushing the arse of the crowd, and
that was a massive moment in Ronaldo's career. But just on Ronaldo's free kicks as well, let's not kid ourselves. Ronaldo used to break our hearts with free kicks. Ronaldo's free kicks would go into the stand as much as they went into the top corner, like that power spin.
Well, I'll give you this statistic. Joe's just informed me. Gabriel Ainsley, direct free kicks, countess taken. How many do you think he scored?
0.
Correct. Well done.
Ever.
You didn't even need a huge knowledge to
I think that would
answer that. So why wasn't Ronaldo standing over this? I'd never know. So that jarred at me personally.
I don't think he was taking free kicks then.
No, he wasn't taking free kicks.
Yeah.
But no, I'm just saying that it's jarring for me to watch it.
Subsequently, in hindsight.
Football, one of the greatest free takers of all time is standing right there. I'm watching Enze taking a free kick.
He's not one of the greatest free kick takers of all time. There's no chance he is. He's not Juninho Penobonucci. He's not him. He's not Juninho. Like Ronaldo, the way Ronaldo would hit the ball back then, the ball would go...
But back then,
miles and miles over the bar.
This is the whole point. It's still jarring when you watch it. Like, I mean, when I see like Graham Bull getting verbally accosted by everybody, that's jarring for me to see that. Of course, like it shouldn't happen nowadays.
Yeah.
What have you gone for? Who wants to go first here in terms of the things that jarred?
Well, mine isn't. The jarring moment for me was like, I don't want to say the obvious one was the tackles and the fact that you wouldn't get away with them nowadays, which I think we all agree with and everyone does. The giant one for me is actually stationary advertising boards on the side of the pitch.
Shout.
That's how old this game is.
Yeah.
I know it's only 15 years in the grand scheme of things, but football has moved so much since then. It's evolved. Well, if you want to be positive about it, it has evolved. And it's just changed in every aspect of it. And this game is alien to me. This is a nostalgic game in every way.
Oh, totally.
I love
even
the
though
font.
it happened this century.
I love the font of the teams in the top left corner and the little Premier League logo as well.
They used to write the full name of the team if they could, and now it's very much the first three letters.
initials.
Yeah.
Twitterising everything, hashtagging everything.
Yeah. So that advertising board and
it was name above another name.
Name above another name, scoreline to the right.
Yeah. That's a drastic change.
And then do you remember the Livestrong wristbands were all the rage?
Bring us nicely onto trending, yeah?
Yeah.
Good.
Sorry.
Will we
stay with trending? Yeah. Well, people remember them, the Lance Armstrong, Livestrong wristbands for cancer support. So the yellow one was the original one that came out that season. And then just in and around this match, January, February 2005, they released the joined black and white one, which was Stand Up, Speak Up Against Racism. So that night, both of their jerseys, because they're both sponsored by Nike at the time, had the Stand Up, Speak Up logo on them. So you can just see it if you're watching there, Rio Ferdinand, just on the right-hand side of the front, you can see the outside logo of the Stand Up, Speak Up.
That was a class band.
There you go. There for Wayne Rooney has it on there, and Arsenal had them on too. And Rooney's wearing the wristband there on his right-hand side.
And a few of them had Livestrong bands on as well, did they?
Yeah, so I think the Livestrong yellow one had kind of gone out of fashion a bit.
Oh, right.
By that stage, I think, like, literally, was the peak of this match was the peak of that movement with the black and white wristband, because I remember everybody in school having them.
Yeah, one of your mates would go off to America for the summer and come back with a rake of them. And
Yeah, well, they sold them here too eventually.
No, but they had way more selection over.
Oh, yeah, they did. Well, then it became ridiculous, like, because there was all sorts of colours and. Those are the two I remember.
I used to wear a camouflage band that said "Support Our Troops," which had obviously come back from America somewhere. Like, it was a ridiculous phrase, really. Tommy, most jarring.
I feel kind of dirty saying this, but the passion that was exhibited on the field, how much they cared, how much pride they had in their performances. Perhaps it's the fact that I've wasted so many hours watching Manchester United over the last 6 years that was just so jarring to me, how much they actually cared. Like, they didn't want to let one player go by them, they'd elbow them or they'd do them to avoid that. They chased everything down. You see, Rooney's manic, like, pressing.
Yeah, right.
What I think is like
that for me, that's the most jarring, because I just don't see that. I don't recognise that in the pitch anymore.
But like, just to go back to your initial point there, I completely agree with you. But I think it jars particularly from our prism at the moment, because we see so many of these people as pundits in television. So like, Ryan Giggs has mellowed out in his old age. Thierry Henry, I think he was always fairly mellow, but he's certainly more mellow than he was back then. Even Roy Keane, to a certain point, has mellowed out a little bit. And you're watching these guys like screaming at referees, screaming at each other. You've Ryan Giggs screaming at Gary Neville. I don't know what the argument was.
That's a great moment.
These people are, like, when you're looking at it, because you think to yourself, this is the pundit, and I'm just watching them 15 years ago, and like, it seems that they've lost their mind. Like, at the time, it's like, this is totally normal. And even if they're footballers now, you're like, this is totally normal. But because you're watching these slick, suited, skinny tie people losing their mind at their teammates and their opposition, you're like, this is crazy. Yeah. So I think that definitely hammers it home when you're watching it from now. We'll go back to trending now. Obviously, the band's great shot. I actually didn't spot it at all when I was watching it back myself. The appalling treatment of the ref is something that was 100% trending at the time.
That was my shout.
Yeah.
It was such a big thing. I remember at times being equally intrigued and appalled by how referees would be chased down. And I think there was a number of it could have been that season, a number of occasions where teams were called up for it. But it was a tactic. It was honestly a tactic from Manchester United teams back then to surround the referee and get in his face.
Gary Neville's admitted it subsequently.
Yeah, because Chelsea always get beaten with that stick, that they were the ones who started that, John Terry and co. But Manchester United was just as bad.
No, there was a famous clip of United in the treble-winning season, or maybe the year after, they had a penalty against them. They were home to Middlesbrough, and they never, ever had penalties against them at Old Trafford in the 90s. I think the last one before that was like Norwich had a penalty in 94, Chris Sutton won. Like, they never got penalties. And I think that was the first time the referee awarded a penalty 5 or 6 years on, and literally every single outfield United player surrounded the referee. I think was it Andy Durso? I'm open to correction on that. And he's backpedaling, running away from them. So it was that United vintage team of the treble-winning side. They were the first that were known as terrorising referees, and Roy Keane was front and centre of that. I actually think Roy Keane on this night was the epitome of calm, certainly by his own standards.
Yeah.
He was pretty calm all game. He kept the game ticking over.
He was very poor in the first half.
Was he poor?
Very poor with his passing.
Gave away the ball a couple of times.
Well, he not even giving it away. He gave his teammates very awkward passes. He was giving Scholes like chest passes in the middle of the pitch. He was passing backwards a lot, but he was absolutely fantastic in the second half.
Well, he
was
makes,
brilliant in the second half.
He makes the Ronaldo second goal.
That outside of the right foot pass
and
to
he
put
used to do
Giggs
that
through.
all the time.
Brilliant.
He used to do that all the time.
But I think the narrative of this game is that the tunnel incident happened. Keane got the better of Vieira in the tunnel, and United got the better of Arsenal in the match. But Arsenal were much better than United in the first 15 or 20 minutes of that game. United equalised completely against
Vieira was exceptional all game.
It's almost as if Roy Keane's anger in the tunnel didn't actually help him in the game. He needed to actually relax, and an angry Roy Keane perhaps wasn't actually the best version.
That's the narrative, and Keane said, we all knew that they were too passionate and they were too angry that night, the Arsenal players, and we knew we had them. But when you watch the game back, that's not the case at all. Like, Arsenal were way on top for at least the first quarter an hour of that match.
In that Fletcher article, he talks about Roy was detailed a defensive midfield role that day, and that Fletcher was tagging Vieira and chasing him, and that in the second half, Keane was like, there's a bit of space here, I'm going to press forward. And he did, and that's what changed the game and it changed the momentum in United's favour. Maybe Keane was a little bit lost in that first half. No, he was quiet, but a lot of players were quiet in that first half. Perez and Giggs had a massive influence.
Yes.
Was Perez very poor all game?
Perez had a very poor game.
20 minutes.
I disagree. I think in the first half...
I thought Perez had a big influence in the first half.
I'm a massive Perez fan. I thought he was very poor.
I think in the second half he disappeared, but I think in that insane opening 30 minutes or so, Perez was central to it. Paul Scholes had a fantastic second half, and was the metronome in that team. The one last thing before we wrap up trending for me is corners. Like we saw it there with Rio Ferdinand.
What's that?
Like I missed him. No, it's just Rio. For me, Rio is trendsetter enough to bring that up. That is it for trending. We're going to get into kind of the reaction now of this game, because I don't want to say that there was certainly not a lot that was said in the immediate aftermath of the game that would remind you of the moment. There's been a lot said in the years afterwards. So, like as I mentioned at the top, Roy Keane's autobiography in 2014 goes into great detail. This thing actually came up to Joe outside when he was reading back the Guardian Live blog by Barry Glendenning when he talks about John O'Shea's goal. So, 88 minutes, Arsenal 2, Manchester United 4. John O'Shea scores with the coolest of chips. Yes, John O'Shea scores with a chip. Gabriel Ainze did brilliantly to make ground down the left and pass the ball inside to Saha, who found Scholes. The Ginger Maestro dinked a lovely ball forward to O'Shea, who was alone on the left-hand side of the Arsenal box. With Almunia coming towards him at speed, he lobbed the Arsenal goalkeeper with a delightful chip that dropped under the crossbar and bounced into the back of the net. A fine goal any striker would be proud to call his own. A priceless collector's item if you're a big lummox of a centre-half from Waterford. Which I guess Barry Glendenning can get away with because he's Irish himself. I think the commentator said he could play for 15 more years and he'll never score a goal like that.
And what did he do?
Prophetic. He's
15 years.
50, exactly.
14 years probably.
14, I guess, from that moment. That's where I kind of wanted to start the reaction section of this, because everybody remembers the fiery bust-ups and the passion that came with this game. John O'Shea turning into Eric Cantona was actually the thing we should be taking away from this.
Which is the Cantona part? The chip or the celebration?
I'm not sure, is it kind of like a surprise where he's like, I can't believe I've done this. Oh my God.
It was like the Aldi version of Cantona's celebration. He stood there dumbfounded by his own brilliance.
Heinze gets mentioned a lot in the build-up to that goal. Paul Scholes' pass.
The outside of the right.
Again, outside of the right.
Beautiful.
I thought Juan Sebastian Veron was the only player who played the ball with the outside of his right back then.
Do you know? Yeah, that's true. Actually, he wasn't very fashionable. Do you know who was brilliant when he came on was Louis Saha. Every time he got the ball, he held it up well and passed it off. And he had a very quick one-touch pass back to Scholes, who outside the right foot. But
destroyed Sol Campbell.
I always
did he?
Sol Campbell.
Well, he was he injured Sol Campbell.
Oh, sorry, yeah. Very first thing he did, yeah, you're right. I remember thinking on the night, and I always think it looking back, that John O'Shea was offside. I think it was Ashley Cole on the far side playing him on.
I think there might have actually been two lads playing him on, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
It was a terrible defensive line.
Really
bad. Gaping hole at
but
centre half.
Arsenal, they were really poor defensively that year. They were the top scorers in the league going into this game, and Thierry Henry was the top scorer individually. But I think since from the 2-0 defeat at Old Trafford for the unbeaten game, they conceded 13 goals in 14 games, whereas United only conceded 5 in the same amount.
And that's obviously the year that Chelsea go the season and concede just 15 goals. Like, what was going on there? United had only 15 goals conceded in February, I think. I don't know how many they conceded overall. But
Pete Carvalho, Terry.
Yeah, goes back to your buddy Pascal Segan.
But was the rest of the league poor?
I suppose, yeah, Seagan versus Mikhail Silvestri. It wasn't exactly two heavyweights, the centre-backs going up against one another, even though I maintain Silvestri was actually quite good at this point.
And Seagan was better than you first remembered.
Exactly. So actually, you know what? I take that right back. One of the things of the reaction that wasn't in the immediate aftermath, but I think looking back at it from now, is that this was the end of what was a beautiful, yet very, very tense rivalry between the two teams. It was the last time, like obviously they met in the FA Cup final that year, which Arsenal somehow managed to win.
Oh, it was ridiculous.
But it was like the end. This was a waving goodbye. This moment was the last moment of, in my opinion, the best Premier League rivalry we've ever had.
100%, because that was United's penultimate match at Highbury ever.
Yes.
And the following season, about the same time, the following season, 2005-06, they played the fixture again.
No Roy Keane that day, obviously gone by November.
Vieira was gone.
Roy
Carroll was gone. All stars. But I remember that was 0-0, the 2006 game.
Then you knew.
And Darren Fletcher got man of the match, and it was just, I remember the sadness, even in the Sky studio, and Sky big up everything that they do, and they were thinking, well, that was a bit underwhelming. And that was their selling point that night, that it was such an underwhelming match a year on from one of the greatest Premier League games ever. And I guess that the rivalry never recovered from that, and that was the last great moment of the rivalry. You're totally right. And it started back in 1996 when Arsene Wenger came in and Ferguson kind of said, who does this guy think he is?
Yeah.
And Overmars scores in 97.
98, yeah, 97, 98. The breakaway goal at Old Trafford.
Then there's the FA Cup semi-final.
Oh, like that's my favourite match of all time, because that had it all.
Keown and Van Nistelrooy.
Keown and Van Nistelrooy, neither of which were involved.
Pizzagate,
Do you remember watching that game?
I do, of course.
Yeah.
Roy Keane scoring twice at Highbury in 2001 and just staring at the Arsenal fans, and none of them dared.
Getting back to this game, do we react to this game then with a sense of sadness then?
Yeah, that's for me. Now, I'm probably saying that because of where we are now. But sure, like, United played Arsenal this season at Old Trafford, and I think was it 1-1? And like all on Twitter and all during the match was like just gifs of the Highbury tunnel and instance like how far it's come since then.
Is there not a great sense of
how far it's declined?
From an Arsenal fan's perspective, I'll hold my hands up and say I watched this game with a great degree of sadness, because you're watching it like this was the end really of the best team that I've ever seen this football club produce. Whereas for you guys, you're like watching a kid Ronaldo and a kid Rooney. You're about to start another golden era very shortly.
Well, it's one of the greatest Manchester United teams is that 06-09 team.
There you go. So surely you watch this game with like a bit of hope. Like, it's the passing of Roy Keane as a football player. He didn't die after this. It's the passing of him as a United player. But like, it's the blossoming of something beautiful. Arsenal fans don't have this to take from this game. So I would say from an Arsenal fan's perspective,
no, that's not true.
No, Arsenal fans played lovely football for the next 5 years. Didn't they?
They got the Champions League final the following year.
And Cesc Fabregas, teenage Cesc Fabregas, was he the youngest player on the pitch that day?
Yeah, well, when he came on, he was,
At least we have that.
But that 2004-2006 was a bad time to be a United fan.
Yeah.
So I look back and at that time, we weren't great. Like, we came third that year.
I want to move on very quickly to sliding doors, which is a section of this that we do, that if you change one little part of the game, what bigger impact would it have? Or if you change the outcome of the game, what wider impact would it have on football? I'm going to lead this off by saying there was no sliding doors moment in this game. This game was always hurtling towards a complete state of utter chaos. Nothing would have changed that. If there was one little goal that was taken out, one little effort that was taken out, a red card perhaps that didn't happen, doesn't matter. Still going to be absolutely a nuts game that would have happened. And the result, meaningless. We mentioned Chelsea, who, if there was a different winner of this game, if it was a draw, wouldn't have mattered one iota. Vieira was always going to leave. Chelsea were always tapping up Ashley Cole. Roy Keane was always going to fall out with Alex Ferguson later that calendar year. This is the football equivalent of two people killing each other at the same time. They both pulled the trigger in a Wild West shootout, and they both notched the headshot. It was always going to happen, no matter what you changed. This was always going to be brutal and oddly satisfying, but in a kind of melancholic way.
Grand scheme of things, arguably nothing would have been changed with the match itself. But there were sliding door moments in the match. Like, Ainsley should have been sent off in the first minute. Wayne Rooney definitely should have been sent off.
He
should have,
Rooney
doesn't matter.
Rooney should have gone.
It doesn't matter. He elbowed Youngberg.
No, he didn't. He was a straight arm. It was a straight arm.
Into the face. Gone. Rooney gone. But Roy Keane is dispossessed in a 22nd minute at 1-1. And it leads to Perez playing in, I think it's Henry, and Sylvestre clearly fouls him. Or maybe he's the other way around.
Penalty.
Yeah, clearly fouls. It's actually Perez he fouls. Clear foul. Clear foul. Graham Poll says play on. It would have 100% gone to VAR nowadays. Arsenal would have got a penalty, and they would have gone 2-1 up 4 minutes after United equalised at a time when they were on the ascendancy. Now, I know they went 2-1 up before half-time anyway, Arsenal, but in theory you're saying they go 2-1 up here. They add a third before half-time. The match is finished. Now, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter. Arsenal finished, I think, 6 points clear of United in second place that season anyway, because United were very poor after this game, whereas Arsenal didn't lose again until the last day of the season. So afterwards, Arsenal were much better. But in the game itself, Arsenal had chances to wrap it up in the first half, and then United won 3-0 in the second half.
Imagine we had some sort of simulator to just put this game through VAR. What would happen?
It would have.
What would happen? Anyways, we won't get into that anymore. So you're saying there's no sliding doors moments. It's just a closed door. That was it. That's it over.
Yeah.
For me, if Graham Poll isn't the referee, this game doesn't happen. Stick Conor Lane in there. Stick Sean Hurson. Stick whoever you want. That game doesn't happen.
Owen here, just going to pop in here for a moment to interrupt today's podcast because we actually got the opportunity to talk to John O'Shea after the recording of this week's episode of the Classic Game Club. Have a listen.
John O'Shea is on the line. Take a quick listen to this. 15 years.
Goals. And John O'Shea can finish it here. That's lovely. It's Manchester United's night at Highbury. Is that the goal that confirms that Arsenal will not be retaining their title and that Manchester United will race Chelsea to the wire?
It's an absolutely fantastically constructed goal, and it's a sublime chip. What's the position he takes up? I'm only guessing no man's land again, but he's got it all to do on his left foot, John O'Shea. Wondered if he was going to go round the keeper. He stands it up. Unbelievable precision. This boy's supposed to be a centre-half, they say. Well, he scored at the weekend and he's obviously got a taste for it. It's a fantastic finish.
John O'Shea could play for another 15 years and never score a better goal.
John O'Shea, good morning to you.
The cheek of that commentator at the end there.
Was he right?
Oh, good morning, boys.
Was he right?
Possibly, yeah.
I thought he did you a disservice, I have to say, in the initial commentary when he said it was a lovely goal. It was an unbelievable goal.
No, look, it was. I was fortunate. I'd made the run, and the manager had told me just to come on and sit and hold in midfield. But obviously, I took a bit of a chance, and thankfully missed our goal. A little flick inside, and I was able to tuck it away. But 15 years ago, wow. Good memories. It's
incredible, isn't it, yeah? Almost to the day as well. How quickly, I mean, I don't know how much of that you can recall or what your head is like for remembering specific moments in games, but you had obviously, as you say, it was clear from the footage that you made your mind up that you wanted to get into the space and no better man to play in, as you mentioned. How quickly in your head did you know, because the keeper had come off a little bit off his line, how quickly in your head after you received the ball do you know that's what I'm going to do here?
Yeah, well, look, that's the thing, because of the angle, and you're generally thinking a lot, certain keepers come out and rush. Try and rush you to obviously put you off. But I'd honestly done a few of them in training, probably two or 3 weeks beforehand. Because different times in the sessions, we do little things like that, just on the angle as well, because and as well how keepers rush out, just little things and stuff like that. So the odd time when I joined in with the midfielders and attackers doing a bit of finishing. I had done a couple, but it was only in training. So to do it in a game like that, when obviously the incident that happened in the tunnel beforehand and stuff like that, you know, it was, and at that time the games against Arsenal were really, really intense, proper games. So nice to finish a game off like that. And
you've swept it across the full distance, I suppose, of the goal. Was that the intention? I think it nestles in the inside of the side netting. Was that the intention, to give yourself the full capacity to get the ball up and down, or was it let's just get it over his head here?
No, let's just get it over. And I think then I wish the camera had a pan down a little bit. I was obviously trying to do an awful Eric Cantona impersonation, you know, with the hands out, but it just looked like awful shock on my face. But everyone telling me, you must have thought you were offside, were you?
But like that's the thing. Like we were kind of jokingly saying that you'd gone full Cantona, not only with the goal but with the celebration as well. Because as you say, it's a very tight shot, and you can only see the face. So you actually were trying to replicate Cantona in a celebration at that moment.
But in my head, I was not in anyone else's head. No, look, as I said, obviously you remember not at a split moment where you just think, okay, I'll just stand still here, and then everyone was that far away from me, standing still, and I thought, best move here. I best move quick, and then eventually the lads came over to me.
Where were you for the tunnel incident? Were you in the tunnel?
Yeah, But obviously, I didn't start that night. But I'd just come on. I just up the back. So if you had a full view of it, if you know what I mean. And obviously, I was aware of what Gary Neville had been and said to the boys after the warm up that Gary might have slightly exaggerated it as well, maybe to make sure that everyone was fired up. So look, when stuff like that goes on, it's the game itself doesn't need at that time. The game itself doesn't need any extra motivation and spice because of the way the two teams are. But to have that on top of it with Roy and Patrick Vieira going head to head like that was brilliant.
It seems that Gary Neville almost could have a master's in the psychology of Roy Keane. He knew exactly what to say to him to get him to the perfect pitch to have a go at Patrick Vieira.
Well, yeah, look, everyone was in the dressing room at the time going, did he bang out of order? But Roy was just saying nothing, silent, and obviously preparing himself for battle just a couple of minutes earlier.
Was that your second or third full season after the loan spell, John?
That would have been second or third. Good question.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It might have been. I'm not sure. It might have been your second.
Was it 04? Was it 04, 05?
04, 05, yeah.
Yeah, it would have been my kind of second.
Yeah.
02, 03, I got my first Premier League title, so mark it out for one.
Yeah. So, like the reason I'm asking is that, so you mentioned a bit earlier on, Alex Ferguson asks you to go out and play that role. You come on around the hour, that sort of sitting midfield role, and then you decide, actually, do you know what? I'm going to have a bit of a run at this. What, like, in terms of your thought process at that time, because I can't imagine like going against the instructions of a manager like Alex Ferguson is something that players are doing that often. What are you thinking in terms of the instructions at that stage?
That would be in obviously when the other team say had possession. The manager always encouraged their own individual abilities, shall we say, skills and ideas. And it was Heinze who was bombing down the left. And he'd skipped away from a lunging tackle. So I just thought, right, we got a bit of a break here. And managed just to make the run.
Yeah.
And I was actually probably thinking in my head, I'll create someone a bit of space. A little bit I know I was creating my own bit of space. But it was a great baller in the corner.
Oh, it was beautiful.
From Scholesy, so to be able to get the touch and finish, it was nice. Your
position was pretty uncertain at that point, was it? Like you've been shifted around a fair bit, and maybe you didn't know, or the manager wasn't fully sure where you were going to land at that point. Is that fair enough to say?
But yeah, look, possibly. You're thinking of the competition we had. We had at the time in the squad was fierce, So the manager had trusted me to do the job anywhere across the back four, and obviously in holding midfield in European games as well. So no, it was a big asset to me. People would always ask that about the versatility and stuff, but I tell you, if being involved in first team coaching now, if we could have lots more players like that, it'd make the job a lot easier.
Yeah, I'm sure we're going to get on to the first team coaching. Just one last thing for me on this encounter. Just watching the full thing back this week, John, there's kind of a sense of nostalgia, kind of a melancholic nostalgia to the whole thing. The kind of sight of yesteryear that was Patrick Vieira and Roy Keane going up against one another, but then kind of the inkling that something special was about to happen for Manchester United after that again, because obviously Cristiano Ronaldo was starting to come into his own around that season, scoring 2 goals. Like, did you realise at the time just how special it was that this might be the end of the great rivalry between those two individuals and these two behemoths of clubs?
Yeah, you're obviously getting the feeling that there's more. Chelsea were obviously coming, challenging. You're aware that obviously these players can't go on, obviously, forever too. So, but at that time, those games were really intense, were real proper, full-on battles, and I suppose the other teams wanted to get involved in that, and obviously Chelsea did. Mourinho. And then obviously the other teams, Arsenal, then just couldn't seem to regain that challenge. You know, Man City came along then, and now obviously Liverpool. But Arsenal are obviously really in that transition one. And since Wenger, they've struggled, and now Arteta, he seems to be starting a new chance for Arsenal, but they've a long way to go because the others have, especially Man City and Liverpool, have got so far ahead at the moment.
John O'Shea there taking a call on OTB AM. Incredible that he actually did mean to replicate Cantona in both the chip and the celebration. Some brilliant photos as well online of different celebrations happening in different parts of the pitch. John O'Shea bemused but elated at what he had done, putting Manchester United 4-2 up against Arsenal. Here is myself, Tommy and Colm rounding up this week's edition of the Classic Game Club. Our final question, as always, is it a game that is overrated or underrated? I'm going for underrated because I think the legacy of the game is perhaps overrated, but I think as a football match it's underrated because everybody remembers the tunnel. Nobody actually recalls that this was one of the best Arsenal versus Manchester United matches the Premier League has ever seen. 4-2 doesn't even do it justice. It had everything, and I mean everything. And I think you could do a lot worse than going back and just watching this game start to finish every single day.
Absolutely watch it back. 100% underrated. Keane, Scholes, Vieira, Giggs, Bergkamp, Henry, Rooney and Ronaldo before they become Rooney and Ronaldo. We didn't know how good we had it back then.
A great scoreline, because any more goals would have been a joke. It would have been an absolute joke. Like Arshavin, 4 goals at Anfield, like defensively a joke. Right?
So what are we saying? We're saying 6 is the threshold.
Brilliant scoreline.
We're saying 6 is the threshold. 7 goals is a joke of a game. 6 is just on the...
Yeah, well, 6 as long as they're evenly split or relatively so, yeah. But like 4-2 is perfect.
It didn't feel
perfect for that game.
You also need a winner. A 3-all wouldn't...
Yeah, 3-all and perfect.
Didn't feel like 4-2.
No, but at the end, but I mean, John O'Shea's goal exists on its own island.
Yeah.
Like, it should just be its own thing. But so it was like a 3-2 game, really. But perfect, and it couldn't be further from underrated, or overrated, excuse me. Completely underrated, because football essentially is entertainment and escapism as a fan, and that game had absolutely everything. And you wouldn't be looking at your phone nowadays if it was on. And actually Twitter would just blow up, and I'd put the phone on the other side of the room because you have to focus on this game, because you will miss it if you put your head down. I was writing notes during the game, watching it back.
Yeah, and then you have to
go back up and pause, go back up.
Yeah, this game would have broken the internet, I think it's fair to say. One last thing before we wrap up. We of course had a Cadbury's Roadshow back in September, featuring 2 of the protagonists/antagonists, depending what colour your club is. We've got Gary Neville here and Roy Keane talking about this incident and the legacy of the game.
And the problem with the Arsenal lads that time, I wasn't... People look back on my career, I wasn't really into that argy-bargy stuff in the tunnels and threatening people. Honestly, it wasn't my scene. Jesus, listen out. I wasn't, but when I see lads then almost picking on somebody, and I don't mean just on Neb, there was 3 or 4 of them, Martin Keown and people like that. So that probably, it was more the bullying than kind of fellas getting stuck into each other on the pitch. I think if you have any aggro with people, you bring it out onto the pitch, this tunnel stuff. And the most important thing about that night was, and maybe forgotten about, is that we had to win the game, and we won the game. Yeah. There's no point doing all this carry on in the tunnel and then going out and get beaten. So the key was to win the match and just put Arsenal, 1 or 2 lads in their place. But that was no big deal.
Yeah, put 1 or 2 lads in their place and then subsequently finished 3rd, of course, in the Premier League that season. I maintain there was no sliding doors moment, of no greater significance, just an absolutely unbelievable game. Lads, thanks many for joining me. Before we wrap up this morning, we have had a bit of mail in. Basically, the idea of this every week is we're going to review a classic game. It's like a book club, except it's for matches, epic matches in recent memory or in ancient history. We've got a mail in here from James Calney, who says, Ireland versus Netherlands, September 1st, 2001. Best result/atmosphere at Lansdowne Road that I can remember. We will 100% get to that game eventually. While Green Hands Kelly commented on YouTube with a load of great suggestions. Istanbul 2005, 100% we're going to get to that this year, 15th anniversary. Nadal Federer, Wimbledon 2008, Colm Boohig, I'm sure we'll get to that eventually. Tip Kilkenny 2009, 2014 draw. Ireland Wales 09. That is coming up next week. Dublin versus Mayo 2017. Manchester City versus Liverpool in January 2019. Very, very recent, but maybe someday we'll get to that one. But as I say, we are going to get to Ireland versus Wales in 2009 next week here on the Classic Game Club. Remember to tweet us at Off The Ball or comment on the YouTube streams if you've got any suggestions. Colm, Tommy, thanks a million for popping in.
Cheers, lads.
Chat to you next time.